I wonder if I should like prompt this. Do I need like to do like a YouTube intro? You know, I think
Yeah,
there's
let's do it.
the
Go
possibilities
ahead.
are endless. You know, like welcome back to the tipped off. Matt, isn't this normally your job to do this?
Not
Right?
anymore, dude.
Yeah,
I've
exactly. Yeah,
had
Mhm.
enough of that for 1 week.
check it
Thank you.
out at tipped off. It's so fucking funny. Yeah. But no, I'm pretty excited for this tournament, right? Like I'm obviously biased because I'm the TO, so I get to kind of like watch it come from the crib to, like mature into a real tournament. But I have to say, like this is definitely a very impressive pool of players to have, especially for a melee only event like this, right?
Mhm.
I think like just the amount of not only top 100 but kind of like the former top 100 like secret boss people is pretty unprecedented. I'm pretty excited to see that in this like kind of stage of melee, right? Because I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like this year has been really really competitive as far as who's winning tournaments, who's doing really good at tournaments. Like a lot of people that were kind of slumping previously are really starting to compete hard again. Because I think what was the stat we were talking about the other day, Mono, where it was like I think since Don't Park there was basically a different person had won every major until Cody won Full House, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think even since like tipped off 15 last year, right? Like the precedent that was set for like the year and a half previous of like who was gonna win or even perform really well at majors was just it's thrown out the window, right? Like
Yeah,
um for like a year and a half, it was just Cody and Zayn winning pretty much everything, and then it was Mango and Zayn and Moki and Jmook and Hungry Box and Aklo getting second, Nikki
Aklo getting
getting
grands, yeah,
with it, yeah,
third, yeah.
third twice. Like
Or
it just
three
Yeah.
like
times, three
every
times.
precedent was just
Yeah.
ruined,
It's
right?
crazy, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I think, I 2023 I think was a really cool year for Melee, but I think it did kind of have just the top level, like who was winning tournaments, some of that staleness, right? And there was a cool
Mhm.
rivalry between Cody and Zayn, but I think we really have like kind of a different perspective, at least on the spectator side, like Aklo and Nikki on the competitor side. Do you think it like kind of feels different, the vibe this year, maybe compared to a year ago?
Well, yeah, actually, what I was gonna say is that it feels like right now people are trying like their asses off right now, and like I know people always wanted to win, but people are really, really like just going ham at it right now. Like, and even if you think about it, like back when Cody and Zayn were the year where they played the match,
Hmm.
like nobody wanted it more than those guys that year. Also, like they were just playing more than anyone, and it kind of just feels like now everyone's doing that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Nick,
really
what about you?
interesting to hear that from you because I don't really have the reference point because I only really started going to more tournaments. I went to Collision last year in March, but that was my first North American tournament in like 3 years. And then I only went to, two more events in the later half of 2024. So I don't really have a reference to like how it used to be before these strange times started happening. I'm just here for it. I just think it's fun, and I feel like people are trying really hard. And yeah, it's fun to see so many different people in top eights and to have it be so unclear who's going to win every tournament.
For sure. Yeah, I mean it's not that you're obviously a part of it, right? Like that's obviously fun is you're now a like one of the dark horses in the race, right, at every tournament. I think that's a really cool thing to have happen, because obviously people doing really well making top eights is a really cool storyline, but people winning the tournament maybe that aren't the people expected to win the tournament is just such a cool factor, right? In melee history. So um yeah, I don't know. Like looking at the bracket here, right? I know that the brackets have been moving around a little bit. They'll be finalized at midnight tonight, but I think for the top seeds, it's pretty locked in. I think if we want to look at this round of top 128, this pool one, which is the Cody Schwab section of the bracket. Funny enough, as the first seed. Is there anything that stands out to y'all, kind of as maybe potential upsets or just interesting matches that we may see in this quarter of the bracket?
I just think that the matches we're getting before top 32 are so crazy.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, I first have to call out in winners round one, the second match here that we're seeing is Lucky versus
Mhm.
Riggs.
Yeah.
Riggs he probably would have preferred to not have to play against the Fox because I feel like the Fox did was one of the matchups that he hasn't really excelled at yet in Europe. But I think he can do it. I feel like just like Lucky, he's a very momentum-based player. And obviously, he's going to this event thanks to the
Yeah.
round that he won.
Right.
So with the help of Nouns, so hopefully he'll be able to do well with us, and we can motivate him to do his best. But
Yeah.
yeah, so there's so many crazy sets here. Salt versus Sunsei, that's gonna be such a banger set.
Yeah, if Miles makes it there, right? Because also the streets have been saying that Jeichu versus Sunsei is upset potential, right? I don't think
Oh
Sunsei is
man.
someone that traditionally prides himself versus the mid tiers or that area of the cast.
Mm.
So yeah, there's a theory out there that might be a Jeichu upset. Maybe Akla, you've played both of them, right? What are your thoughts on that
Um,
opinion from the street?
I think Sunsa's got the composure to just keep it together for that.
Yeah.
But I will say, and like I'm definitely gonna sound like a complainer right now. I hate Pikachu, especially with Fox. Like,
Yeah.
um, little tangent, but like there was like a little while, just like less than a month ago, where like I think I had lost to J2 on I think it was one of our brackets online or something.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah.
And
I
I
think I
got
remember.
really pissed off. I was like, "No, that's it. I'm picking up Sheik. It's over for them." So I was practicing Sheik like the week before Full House, which was also really bad. It's part of the reason I
So
did
funny.
really bad at Full House. But
John's, yeah.
I remember I found J2 on rank 2 times, and I was going Sheik. My tag on Slippy was Foxy Grandson, and he could not take a game off my Sheik. And he even switched to Fox, and I just beat him with Sheik.
Jesus. That's
No,
that's pretty funny.
I totally get the feeling because we have a decent amount of good Pikachu players in Europe as well, and
Mhm.
I will still play ranked as Fox sometimes. And you don't know how good it feels when I like barely win the first game and then they pick Final Destination. I intentionally don't ban it, and then I get to pick Ice Climbers. And after just like running into their rising up airs and getting back throw gimped, I just grab them. It's
Messed up, man.
it feels so good. It's
Yeah,
like
the
I have so
carbon
much
balance.
respect
Not
for what
great,
they do.
right?
I've got so much respect. Pikachu is so hard to play, and you have to be just so fundamentally good at melee to play the character. But it's also so frustrating to just
But
get
are
hit
you-
in the
are you
ways that they
joking
hit
when
you
you
as
say that,
Fox.
by the way?
Jesus. No, I think that's funny. And yeah, I mean, I think it's like Jeichu. I mean, there's probably nobody else an up and coming Pikachu player wants to see in their bracket besides a Spacey, right? Like
Right.
that is the dream matchup is the top level Spacey. So I'm very curious to see what happens there. Especially because the winner of that is projected to play Salt, right? And I think Jeichu recently has been apparently what the streets are telling me has been doing really well against Salt in online tournaments.
Oh,
So
okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
um
I think J2 beat Salt was it like less than a week ago, right?
I think twice. Yeah, I think
Mm.
J2 double M Salt at some tournament.
Yeah.
Which is pretty
And
surprising
if we're talking online sets, I mean, I think J2 on like Slippy Ranked might have like one of the most played ever.
for sure.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean he's up there. I mean that kid just grinds. He's just 19 years old playing Pikachu for 12 hours a day.
Of
I
course,
respect
yeah,
it, but
of
yeah.
course.
Mhm.
What's really funny, I just thought about this, Nikki, when you're talking about Lucky and Rix, is Rix gets into town on Tuesday, right? So he'll actually be the first one at the boot camp with just Lucky, right? So I imagine they're going to be
Mm.
playing Melee together because they'll be the only two people in the house, knowing that they have to play that weekend, which will be pretty humorous. So
And when exactly is the Switch 2 coming out? Because I thought Lucky and especially Mango were just wanting to play Mario Kart.
that comes out on Thursday, right? So Tuesday and Wednesday
Okay.
they're grinding Melee, yeah, which is so
Okay, so
funny.
Rix
Yeah.
gets a solid 2 days
He
before
gets a
everyone
solid 2 days.
ignores him for Mario
And
Kart.
that's another player like Lucky is someone who usually doesn't like grind super duper hard for me. Like he's been
Yeah,
playing like I saw him playing a week and a
every
half
day.
ago. A week and a half ago, his stream title was tipped off practice. Like, oh my god.
Yeah,
Mhm. Well,
no,
I think
it's
that like it's
crazy.
just we've all just like come to terms with the fact that this is like the most stacked tournament that
I
we have had and
I
probably
think
will have
ever.
for a long time.
I think ever.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a
no.
minute. Yeah.
So I mean like I feel like we always talk about like the rankings as this like driver for like motivation or the thing that people want to like validate, but I don't know, dude, winning the biggest tournament of all time is
It's a flex.
pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a flex, right? And like the thing is like no one has an easy bracket path, which I think is really interesting, right? Like this bracket goes so deep. Like a lot of these top 128 winners round one sets are normally top 32 at most majors, right? Like a Panda versus Preeminent or something like that, or maybe a Nun versus Wally could easily be a top 32 set at some major out there. So it's crazy just how many people you have to beat or upset to really make it far in this tournament. Yeah, looking at this first quarter, I mean, we have just really some crazy sets. Like I think Jmook versus Panda is another one that's interesting. I believe they played at CEO last year, right? And I believe Panda
Right.
actually beat Jmook, if I remember, right?
I believe
Um,
so.
Mhm.
yeah, which is pretty interesting because Panda, especially Crudo, will tell you this is kind of a chic killer, right? Is what the streets say. They've
Mm.
played a lot, and I think Kyle very rarely beats them. They're
Oh
they're
really?
obviously teammates and stuff like that. Yeah, Panda's low key apparently nasty on the sticks versus the Ninja.
Okay.
Um, And obviously you have to beat Jake, right? So I think that one will also just be a really interesting set going into top 32. But Nikki, I'm kind of curious your perspective as a European that's probably seen more of Triff's gameplay of what we think about Triff potentially having to play none, right? And kind of just that Falcon matchup in Europe as a whole.
Good question. Triff did beat Wizzy at Genesis, right?
Yep.
And he even beat Wizzy, I think, late last year at some point. So I think he kind of knows how to play the matchup now, but playing against Wizzy and playing versus None or Salt is a completely different thing. I think Triff matches up better against the slower Falcons, like the way Wizzy plays. So I feel like None might give him a lot more trouble than Wizzy would, despite, Wizzy conventionally being seen as the slightly
Did
better
and they
Falcon
did
player recently.
did
they
Triff and
did
Wizzy?
just play
Yeah, yeah,
at Full House. None and Triff won Game 5. None won Game 5.
yeah.
Just at Full House.
Oh,
Wow.
yes, right.
Forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Good
Yeah.
point.
That's crazy. Yeah, so that's a kind of a run back, and None having double Peach there. That's probably maybe a matchup he's pretty comfortable in. I mean, that's a super interesting set, right? And I think especially because kind of this, round 2 pools, right? You're not even in top 32 yet. There's a lot less time to really prepare for a specific set than maybe something like a top 32 or a top 16 or a Sunday sort of set, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty interested to see how this first pool goes. I think statistically by seed, really Salt Sunsei is the closest gap of technically Sunsei's the highest seeded person supposed to be in losers, but
Right, out of these 4, right?
out of everybody in the tournament, right?
Oh,
Because he's
okay.
the 17th seed, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, tons of other killers like Beezy's in this pool, right? Something
Right.
like Beezy, Jchu could be crazy. Just the whole losers brackets is super super crazy.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Is
I
there
also
anything
have
else
to
y'all?
say,
No, go ahead.
yeah, I think None having to play Wally into Triff, I feel like the Wally set might already be difficult because Wally is really good.
That is
And
true.
I could imagine that Wally is probably seated a bit lower due to not being as active, but Wally definitely has the chance to beat None. And then also if you beat Wally and then have to play Triff, that's such a
It's a good
it's such a
warm-up.
difference in play styles. Because
For
Wally
sure. Yeah.
Wally fights you a good bit more, and Triff is like the wall who just never gets hit, and Wally is really good at hitting you. So yeah, while you might think like, oh, he gets to play 2 Peaches that he can just get warmed up in the matchup. I don't think you can warm up the same way for Wally and Triff. I think it's
Okay.
a very different
For
way you
sure.
have to play the matchup.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I feel like in the past year there's kind of this sentiment where character specific warm up isn't as important, right? I remember people were talking about this a lot when they would try and warm up for like say June and they would like play Quang or something, right? And they're like, oh, like the warm up actually hurt me because of just how different they play, right? I feel like I hear people talking about that just a lot more often, especially in some of these like more niche matchups. So yeah, maybe that'll be a factor. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think this first quarter of the bracket, starting off the day on Saturday, is going to be pretty crazy. All of these matches will be streamed, which I'm really excited about. So they'll all be saved and broadcast to the world, which will be pretty sick. So
Oh, you say all of these matches?
all of the matches from all the pools will be streamed. All of top
Wow,
128 will be
that is
streamed
insane.
again. So yep, the most
Wow.
streamed melee tournament of all time. Which my production people have been going crazy on that one.
Which I
So
believe is breaking the record from last year's tipped off of
from
the most
myself, yeah,
stream.
just
Yeah.
competing with myself is pretty funny. Yeah. Knock on wood.
Hell
But
yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, looking at the second set of bracket here, pool 2. This one's also, I think, very interesting, right? Because this is, of course, Nikki, you're in this pool. Mana, you're also in this pool, and what Amso's saying, the first high level Yoshi Ditto, right? Which is pretty funny.
I mean,
But
by
this is
default,
also
it's
the
not a
Plup
high
pool,
bar.
right? Yeah, I guess, yeah. But yeah, this is also the Plup pool, right? Which is pretty funny. So yeah, Plup is someone who most people probably say is underseeded at this tournament, true skill wise, but he's
What
kind
did
of got to
you
earn
end up
his keep.
like? Where's he kind of ended up around? Like what?
Yeah,
He's
do we
the
know the
18th seed of this tournament, right? He's
18th?
the
18th?
18th seed.
Okay.
Yep. So he's just below Salt and Sunsei, right?
It's actually not
That's
bad,
why
yeah.
it's not too bad, all things considered. He's still Plup at the end of the day. He
Mm.
still can obviously do amazing work. Like last year at Tipped Off, he went on a run and got 3rd place, and beat
That
a
is
bunch of
true.
people, which is pretty crazy.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I'm curious what you guys think about this section of the bracket, especially because 2 of you are in it. So
I'm taking a look right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think HBox is playing Maelstrom into Chem. I feel like Chem could give him some trouble. I feel like Chem, whenever I see him play, is like the greatest player I've ever seen.
yeah,
So that might give
Right.
Hungrybox a hard time. But then
Or
obviously,
it could,
yeah.
it's right, or it could also be Agent, right? Who I think
That's
has
true.
had some some upsets in the Fox Ditto.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Chem Agent.
And
they're
who
trading
also
partners,
is
right?
like
Yeah.
HBox's practice partner for the
Yeah.
Fox matchup lately.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I believe actually HBox is flying Agent out to this tournament, funny enough.
Oh.
Because he warmed him up for Genesis, and he warmed him up at Full
Oh
House
yeah,
right
yeah.
before
I
he
was about
beat
to
Zane and
say.
everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, if I keep winning, I'll keep flying you to these tournaments to warm me up.
Also,
So
important to
um,
note, when he warmed
yeah.
HBox up for Full House, he was
Yeah.
not at Full House. He was playing
That's
yeah,
HBox
he's
correct.
on
on
net play.
HBox's
Yeah.
laptop.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Agent was streaming that session. I was like, why is he warming up with you like to play Zane? Like that doesn't make any sense. But then he won, so I guess I don't know if there's a method
That
to
is
his
true.
madness.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yo.
absolutely.
And then
man.
the next piece of it is what? Is it Magi and Max against the winner of Plup 404 Cray?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Expected. Yep.
So I would definitely give the Magi Max to Magi, and the Plup for the Plup for Credit Plup, but
Didn't
yeah,
those two
I am
play
interested
at
about the
Announce
winner of
Bowl?
those.
Plup and the real thing played at Nouns Bowl.
The real
Right,
thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's
was
what
the
it was. Yep.
Falco. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yep.
Do we know, like, is Plup grinding right now, or is he just like showing up?
He's been streaming Melee, right? He's been streaming Melee,
Okay.
which is something to be said, right? But it's really hard to know. Like he's maybe the biggest question mark in the bracket, right? Because like last year I think we seeded him like 9th or something, and he got 3rd. I think at Nouns Bowl we seeded him like 8th or 9th. He got like 25th and played
Yeah.
Jigglypuff. Like it's just really difficult to get a read on that guy. He's like the
We're
Sphinx.
gonna only know when he walks in the venue. We could tell by the way
It's
he's
true.
walking.
It's true.
I also
Something like that.
do think that having like the Invitational stuff, like the spots going to Japan on the line,
Yeah.
can motivate people.
That is
Even if
true.
they're
Sure.
like, a little bit lukewarm on Melee at the
Yeah.
moment. Even if the biggest tournament isn't like a big draw for you, there's still a nice vacation.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't want to go to
Yeah.
Tokyo, right?
It's
Who doesn't
for
want to
real.
go?
I'm so glad I don't have to worry about that anymore. There's
Yeah,
just
Like,
so
both you
much
guys are
stress and
already-
pressure off of me. I'm so happy.
Yeah. It's really funny that you and Josh got it because you of course were ranked 9 and 10 respectively,
be
right?
honest,
But now it's like all 10 of the top 10. Yeah.
When you and Josh got it announceable, I was actually glad. Like I think you guys really deserved those spots, like
For sure.
just
Yeah.
based on like earning it through play.
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
I mean, both of you have been doing incredibly
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
tournaments you've been to in the past
Yeah.
6 months.
And it's also very interesting because that tournament was not supposed to have that decided in top 4 or top 3 of the tournament,
Yeah.
right? That was supposed to be like, oh, maybe one person makes top 8, but that's the funny thing about Melees. You never know how the dice are going to land, right? Like, people are going to play how they're going to play, and it's going to happen. But that being said, I think the next little section here is Nikki. You have a bunch of Spaceys in your bracket path. Have you played any of these fine people before? What are your vibes on some of your opponents?
I played Zoppy and Friendlies last year at Collision, and he's like a renowned Icy Slayer.
Oh, really?
He does really
Oh.
well against Slug and people like that as well. So having to play the winner of Fiction and Zoppy, who are both known for being good against Ice Climbers, that's a really fun bracket for me to be in. I've already been preparing a lot for those two, just like looking at what they do against Icies that works well for them. Because I feel like a lot of Icy Slayers, not all of them, but some of them rely on like Ice Climbers players not being able to do one or two things.
Right.
So if
For
I can
sure.
just find out what those one or two things are, then I can actually just play normal neutral with them and hopefully do well. But yeah, it's a very scary bracket, but I'm just looking forward to it because it's gonna be really
sure.
fun. And I've played Fiction 3.5 years ago at Smash World Tour 2021. I played him with my Fox in pools and I won. So if I have to play
Ooh.
Fiction, all else fails.
All
Maybe I
else
just have
fails.
to pull out my Rusty Fox,
Yeah, I
miss
was gonna
4 ledge
say,
dashes
how's
and lose.
the Fox looking these days?
Yeah, you warming it up or?
Yeah, I mean,
It's on the back burner.
maybe against like a secondary Peach, but against a top level
Yeah.
Spacey, I don't
So-
think it's gonna.
Well,
That's what I was gonna say.
He did bring up the peach at Pataka against
Yeah,
Moth,
against Moth,
right?
and I
Yeah.
believe he 3-0'd her too.
I
Yeah.
think that's right.
Yeah.
So you
I'm
might
preparing
have
for
to.
all three
I
of
actually
his
have a
characters, so I
feeling
have a
that he will
spreadsheet for
go
all of them.
Peach against you.
All
I think
3 of the
he will.
characters? Wow. That's crazy.
We're definitely
but-
doing a double blind pick in the
Yeah,
beginning.
you
Oh, that's
should.
so funny.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I'm excited to see that one just because, Fiction, you never really know, who he's going to play. You don't know if he's going to DQ before he even makes it that far into bracket.
See, if I'm Fiction right now, I'm practicing my Peach versus Fox. I'm just kidding.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, that one will be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And then Yeah, so then I think Mono, you're up next, right? You have to play the Yoshi Ditto, right? Like, what's the
Right.
vibes on the Yoshi Ditto? I know nothing about the Yoshi Ditto. Does anyone know anything about the Yoshi Ditto?
I mean, like, I think it's all relative, right? Like, I can say I've played against other Yoshi players. I'm, I'm good friends with, like, Egg Money. Like, Jarvis and I
Mhm.
play a lot, and I know that, like, Amsa used to play Nez a bunch back in the day, but, you know, who the fuck knows, man? It's so far removed from, like, Amsa and,
Mhm.
like, I don't have a ton of look, he's Amsa. I'll try my
Yeah,
best.
yeah.
But who knows?
You
Like
Yeah,
know?
it's pretty fun.
AMSA, like
Who knows?
he might not have the experience in that, So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then the winner of both of y'all plays the winner of Ben and Zanya projected,
Right.
right?
Ben and
And you
Zanya,
said
let's
Yeah,
go.
Zanya was a little bit of a Yoshi killer, right, Mono?
so I've played Zanya a fair bit. I think Zanya
Mhm.
is a very, uh, underrated player, really fundamentally solid, also kinda understands the Yoshi matchup well. I think that
Sure.
if Zanya can make her way past Ben, which is a lot to ask, of course,
Yeah.
Ben's a great player in his own right, could be pretty scary for Amsa, like, deceptively so, 'cause I she gives me the business and really seems to get the character's strengths and weaknesses and where to apply pressure and where to hold, you know?
For sure.
So
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping for the best for you because I believe you're projected to play them in losers, which is will
awesome.
be
Oh my
interesting. So
god.
yeah, yeah, that'll be funny. But yeah, no, definitely gonna be some fun ones. Like if this goes to seed, I mean, Fiction Agent I think will be a banger set
Oh
to
yeah,
make
yeah.
Sunday. Kim and Zuppy is another one that I think could be a lot of fun. So yeah, this is a really interesting corner of the bracket. I think with a lot of really unexpected characters, and I think just also some unexpected people. I'm very curious to see how Plup does, right? If Plup makes it to play Juan on Sunday or not. So, yeah,
I'm
I'm
not
pretty
gonna lie.
excited
I
for it.
I think my call is that Plup is gonna lock in and make top 8.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
when we look at top 32, I'm curious what you think his path is there.
That is true. I didn't look at
We'll,
his full
we'll look
path,
at it.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, moving on to pool number 3 here, right? The third slice of our bracket. The first thing I noticed, of course, is we have the Moki Akir run back, right? So for those of y'all that don't remember, is last year it tipped off. Moki lost to Moth, and then was just about to get 3-0'd by Akir
Oh
to
right.
get knocked out at
Mhm.
33rd before he clutched up and reverse 3-0'd and went on FD twice, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty funny, but it's like this DK character, man. He's something else, right? Like I just don't get it. I
Yeah,
think
how do you guys
it's
feel
hard.
about Donkey Kong
I
in
think
Yeah, yeah.
I
in
think Donkey Kong is a really really good character. Like not just a little bit good. I think
Yeah.
I
We're on the tier
think
list.
let me pull up some characters real quick. But I'd say he's around like Yoshi level. Um, I could see a
Okay.
world where he's actually better than Yoshi too. Like he's
Hmm.
just also 20,000 times easier than Yoshi too.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
And like I don't know, who does Yoshi lose like really really bad to? Like just off the top of your head, like
Sheik.
Sheik,
Yeah.
Falcon, Fox, maybe
yeah,
Peach,
I think
Peach
Falcon
3 or 4.
Sheik. Yeah. It's like I know people say like Donkey Kong gets destroyed by Sheik and Falcon, but like
Mhm.
though I still think those are doable matchups actually. Yeah.
I mean, proven, right? I
Yeah,
mean, if if
exactly.
if you get destroyed, you probably don't get to beat Jake, right? If
Yeah.
even the sets where June loses sometimes, I mean, he makes
Yeah,
them really close,
Yeah.
you know?
and Crudo at Collision last year beat
Exactly.
Fault
Exactly.
Yeah. Like I was actually
at
I watched
Patchwork.
the June
Yeah.
J-Mook set from Genesis,
Yeah.
and like although like he doesn't win all the time on stage, and it's hard for him to hit Sheik
Mhm.
sometimes. Like the grab is like really really devastating as usual,
For
and
everybody. Yeah.
exactly yeah, and like what I really noticed though is like DK can get Sheik off stage at like an earlier percent than most characters, and just pretty much just kill off the edge guards like earlier than most characters, especially if he has the punch, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's something to be said about DK in round 2 pools as well, right? Just that first round of top 128 Donkey Kong player standing in your way. That maybe makes it a little bit more tricky, but yeah, I think right after this we have the real thing versus Faust, right? Which I think is pretty
Ooh.
exciting. I think all Jigglypuff players rejoice having Falco in their bracket, right?
Mhm.
Generally, I think that's when they like. But
I think
the real
generally,
thing
yeah.
is kind of a slept-on player, right? I think John did pretty good at Nouns Bowl. He of course beat Plup. He beat Plup's Fox and Jigglypuff. Funny enough, in
Oh,
that
is
set.
that what it was?
He beat Yeah, he beat
Yeah.
Dreffen, who had beaten Sunsei earlier in that tournament. So he's kind of another like weird like dark horse player that we don't see too often here. So yeah, I'm not too sure if any of y'all have played him before, but yeah, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, or even potentially yeah, Moki having played against Falco in the round right after that. So
I think I played Real Thing twice last year in 2024, and he was like
Mhm.
he did have really good moments, but um I could I don't know, like against Moki, I would have to give that to Moki. I'm
For sure.
wondering how the Faust set will go for him though. I'm not sure how good he is against floaties. I've actually only seen him against like spaces, so.
Macy's, yeah.
Well, and
You know,
Faust does generally have a pretty solid Falco matchup. I think
Oh,
he
does
beat
he? I've only seen
Magi at
Faust
Genesis
versus like
last year.
Fox and stuff like that. I haven't seen him
Yeah,
versus Falco.
I think he beat Magi at Genesis
Oh
last
wow,
year.
okay, that's pretty good.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally the Falco Jigglypuff clips aren't the ones we see on the combo video, I think,
Right.
sadly. So those don't get the same sort of press that happen. But this next little quarter of the bracket's very interesting because we have Crudo versus Wizzy, right, projected, which
Oh yeah.
despite both of those people living within minutes of each other's geographical location, have actually never played in tournament, funny
What?
enough, right?
Wow.
At least since Start GG's been a thing. So
Mm.
that is actually pretty exciting to see kind of that match happen for the first time because of course they do play a decent bit, right? I think Kyle plays with everybody a decent bit, but yeah, I'm really curious because I think Kyle's someone where especially versus Falcon, I see him as kind of off or on, right? There's some
Right.
days where it's like he's just wobbling them with the tech chase and going crazy, right, and beating Salt, and then sometimes he just loses, right, and looks lost in the sauce. So yeah, I'm curious what y'all's picks are on that front for sure.
If I'm going full vibes based, like I love
hmm
Kyle, but I would give it to Izzy. Yeah.
hmm
I think so too, just very, very slightly.
hmm
Of course, both of them have to make it there. Mod
For
Money
sure.
is also really good from what I see.
Yeah.
True.
But I don't know how much Mod Money attends. So I think
hmm
it's probably gonna be Crudo versus Wizzy, and I think Wizzy might take it. But it could honestly go either way. I could also see Crudo just 3-0 Wizzy, like in a close set.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
For sure.
surprised. You're right.
my worry for Wizrobe right now is I feel like his success in brackets feels like it lives or dies by how clean his punish is, and I feel like the punish in the Sheik matchup is maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot less forgiving than say
True.
against the Spacey.
Correct.
Feels like
Yeah.
the
My
baseline
understanding
difficulty
is
is
it's
a little
not
higher.
possible to tech chase Sheik with Falcon
Well,
is
it
what
is
the
possible. It's just like a
It is.
little
It's
hard.
just
Yeah.
exceptionally difficult. Yeah.
well
It's possible.
what I've been told it's not reactable, all right, from Crudo and from Sammy. So
No, that's just not
maybe
true.
somebody can correct me in the Twitch chat. I hear that two of the tech roles are indistinguishable, but regardless, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it, right? Because it's something where sometimes I think, especially at majors, we kind of conflict seed these people that are from the same area, right? Sometimes where they don't get to play, and that's how it leads to two people playing for a decade now, and they don't have any sets versus one another, right?
Right.
So I think it's pretty exciting to see something like this happen. And yeah, I'm really curious to see who wins. Because I think both of them will have a pretty interesting set versus projected Moki the day after, right?
True.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, looking at this next part, we have Mango versus the winner of Spark and the Chicken Man, of course, right? Bobby. So
Yeah.
I believe Bobby had a pretty good run at Genesis, beating some Sheik players, if I'm correct. Right? I think he beat Ben and maybe one other Sheik player. And I know when he was looking at his bracket the other day, he said he felt like Sheik was maybe one of his best matchups, right? And inversely to that, Spark has been playing, I think, on the Cubtraption or the Strawberry or whatever they
Yeah.
call it, right? So I think maybe he's still adjusting that controller. So I think that's one that could really have some upset potential. Obviously they're not seated too far apart, but
Yeah.
winner of that playing Mango is also pretty interesting. But I would say that would probably be a pretty high ask for either of those people to upset Mango at this stage of the bracket. I'm not sure if anybody disagrees with that, but
No, I pretty much agree with everything that you just said. Like, I think if there's one X factor within those three sets that we're looking at, it's gonna be Spark, Chicken Man slash Bobby.
yeah,
But I
Mhm.
do think after that, Mango will just advance. Yeah.
yeah, makes sense.
Agreed.
Mhm.
And then Aklo, you got OG Kid. Man,
Oh
what's the
yeah.
vibes? You played him on ranked? You played him online? What's the history? Give me the tea.
The only time I have ever lost to OG Kid was, I believe it was my alt account Kirby on ranked one time. Guy sucking. That it's got to be 100-0 matchup. Jigglypuff Kirby. It's like just better Kirby with also a 1 KO.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I'm not
You'll get
worried
the run
for
back
that
this
one,
time.
but I'm definitely
So you're
gonna
not
take it
worried?
seriously. Like,
He
he actually
he
he
beat
has been
Miles
getting better. What?
last stock game 5 with Miles at Nouns Bowl,
Are
by
you
the way.
serious or no?
I swear to God.
No, that
Yeah,
was pretty
Yeah,
Miles
good.
lost to
actually, seriously.
Dreffen and then went. I'll pull up the set for you later. Literally,
Okay.
Miles lost to Dreffen and then went last stock game 5 with OG Kid
All
to
right,
make
I'm
to
not
make
gonna lie,
Sunday.
I'm a little worried now, but
I mean, look, like Miles losing in winners and then immediately falling into the arms of a Jigglypuff and losers is kind of a classic,
Yeah,
though.
that's a
Yeah.
classic.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Yo, okay. I know OGK's been getting better and he also got ranked what? He got ranked this past year.
He's ranked top 100.
like
Yeah, he's like
7, 8,
96 or
Yeah.
something.
around
Yeah.
there.
And he
Yeah.
plays a
Yeah,
lot, so
I
I should definitely
I
take
think
it
you've got
seriously.
this.
What is
Yeah,
that?
you have to
think he's
take it
got it?
seriously. I played OG Kid in friendlies at Nouns Bowl with my Fox for like an hour,
Mhm.
and OG Kid is definitely good at the matchup. But I think
Mm.
if you focus up and like if you don't run it down completely, I think you're too good at the matchup and just too good
Yeah.
in general. So that you
Mm.
should be
Thanks, dude.
I
fine.
also think that your playstyle will match well into the way that OG Kid plays.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope so,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah,
And,
and I think you'd probably agree that Puff's one of your better matchups. Or at least you said that before, right?
Oh
That you thought
yeah,
you were
I
pretty
would
good
say
against
so,
Jigglypuff. So
yeah.
yeah. So that overall has to be a pretty good draw then for your round 1. But just on the mirrored side of you is OKP Ossify, which I
Ooh.
think is really interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
I agree.
Ossify is of course crazy, right? Crazy good. OKP's kind of been traveling more on the come up, but it's Pikachu Marth, right? And we've only ever really seen Pikachu Marth from the Axe sort of perspective, right? Of Axe is super good, he's like not losing to Marth, or maybe like Zane's giving him some trouble. So it's kind of funny to see like the we have Axe Zane at home, right? And see kind of what that looks like at that quarter of the bracket. So
No,
Well,
that's a good
and
point. Yeah.
yeah,
OKP's also proven that they're good in the Marth matchup. I think they beat, was it Raz at Dome Park?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, because I didn't
Respectable.
even consider that, to be honest. Like I was just thinking in my head, like, gotta play Ossify to make top 32. You're
Yeah.
right. Like I should consider that part too.
Yeah, Pikachu. We were just talking about how much you love Pikachu.
Yeah.
Like you could be fighting a Pikachu to make Sunday.
There is a small world where like
Oh my
when
gosh, you're gonna bust out the Sheik.
if
Like,
OKP
yeah.
beats Ossify, I could lose to OKP, but like hopefully that
Yeah.
small
How-
world is not a world that we live in. So,
How's Link versus Pikachu?
it's really bad. Yeah.
Really?
Because Pikachu's like generally really hard for Link to hit, and then
Yeah.
even when you do end up hitting Pikachu, it's really hard to get strong attacks like strong down air or strong up air. So you can never kill Pikachu, and then Pikachu is like one of the few characters in the game that can easily edgeguard Link, and
Yeah.
like his tail just literally goes through every one of Link's moves, which is usual for most characters, but it's just irritating.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. What I think's funny is the loser of OKB and Ossify is projected to have to play the loser of Crudo and Wizzy to make Sunday,
Oh my
right?
god, bro.
I think that's like a very high tension point of the bracket, right? Where really I think any of those 4 people could probably beat any of the other 3 people. So that's a
Mhm.
pretty crazy hard draw, and I'm curious to see how that amalgamation of sets plays out come the bracket day.
And can we just talk
Yeah.
about just for a quick second, like top 32 is Sunday because like and people
Correct,
will be like,
yeah.
yeah, I hope I make Sunday. No, Sunday's not top 8. They're saying I hope I make
Yeah.
it to Sunday, and it's top 32.
It's top
Right,
32. Yeah.
because who is the 33rd seed? Who is the best player seeded to not make?
I believe it is
Sunday.
Lucky. Yeah, I believe Lucky and I think it was Agent are 32, 33,
Yeah, those
if
guys
I recall.
both took a
So,
set off me last year.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard. Like, I think that and the seeding team has done a good job when everybody feels like they have a really hard path to Sunday, right? And has a
Yeah.
hard path to do well at the tournament.
Yeah, because nobody has a freebie, like, or anything even
Nobody.
resembling a freebie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
after we're done
nobody has
looking at this,
freebies.
I want to see who actually does have an easy path to
Who
top
has the-
8.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's-
But it
We'll
maybe
go through.
few and
Let's
far
go through.
between.
Yeah, Pool D, and then let's hit top
Yeah, yeah.
32 and see.
Okay.
Yeah. So looking at the last pool, pool D, right? We start off with Zane Equilateral, which I think is pretty interesting, right? Equilateral, of course, famously beating Mango in
Right,
late,
right.
2024,
Huge
right?
upset,
And
by
a
the way.
totally legitimate set, huge upset, great pop off. But then we have Dreffen versus KJH, right? And Dreffen's somebody pretty interesting because, we kind of, I think mentally we kind of like categorize Dreffen as like, old, maybe like was like super good at the game, but now doesn't play as much, but he still gets the W's, right?
he's been
I see
doing
him
well
grind
recently.
ranked. Yeah, I see him do really good in online
Yeah.
tournaments. And
I
yeah, at
mean, at
Nouncewell he
Nouncewell, he
beat
beat Sensei. Yeah.
Oh,
Sensei,
true.
right? That was a crazy
Yeah.
win. And not the one, I expect Dreffen to maybe beat the good Peach players or the good Marth players, maybe like a Yoshi, but yeah, winning against like one of the best Foxes in the world is really impressive as a 40-year-old father Sheik player, So I'm pretty curious, especially with this being KJH's first tournament back in Melee, right, after a big break,
Right.
how that set will play out, right? Because I think it's really kind of like this old school versus like new school clash in that set, which is pretty exciting.
It's funny that you kind of calling KJH new school now too. But like,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I was
guess.
just
Yeah, I mean
thinking
he's been
that.
playing for a long time, but I mean
yeah,
he's out here labbing, right? I don't
that's
I
true.
don't
That's
think
true.
Dreffen has Uncle Punch on his computer, right? I
Yeah,
think
and
Dreffen's
like
just playing the
Well,
game,
I did play
Like,
Dreffen
Dreffen's
on
also
ranked, I think, or unranked, whatever. I think it was like a few
yeah,
weeks ago. If I recall
yeah,
correctly, he was doing reaction tech chase forward air, so I was like,
yeah. I mean he's nasty. Like I don't
yeah,
know, it's crazy. And I mean, what's funny is the winner of that has to play Zane, right? Which, I think probably sadly is pretty low upset potential, but
mm-hmm.
you really never know nowadays, right? You really never know. Zane's
Yeah,
been dropping a few recently, so I think we can look at that set with some skepticism, but really I don't think I've ever seen Dreffen or Kalindi versus Zane in recent history, so
yeah, I
definitely
don't think
will be
so.
interesting. Yeah. Um, the next little corner of the bracket here, we're projected to have Moth versus SDJ, right? And
Hmm.
I'm curious your take on this, Nikki. SDJ versus Ice Climbers, right? I hear SDJ is pretty good at that matchup, but also just Puff versus Ices in general. Like, what's your thought on that kind of arrangement and the odds there?
I obviously I lost to SDJ at Dawn Park in
Mhm.
winners. So I've been analyzing them a lot just to figure out what they do differently from other climbers, from other puffs. SDJ is really good at like resting ice climbers in spots where it should be free if you know about it. Like whenever you go for up B off stage, right? Sure, Popo has very good drift once he reaches the apex of his up B, but a character that also has pretty good aerial drift is Jigglypuff.
Yeah,
So you could just
Puff,
kind of
yeah.
like ignore Nana, like follow along Popo and just rest them. So
Mhm.
that kind of stuff like will just lose you 1 or 2 stocks, and that's just enough to lose a full game in this matchup because a full stock means so much here. Moth, I think, plays the matchup in a way that is different from how I play it. So I think style-wise, Moth might have a slightly easier time than I did back then. And with the information that we figured out about STJ now, I think Moth has a good chance, but I still would say that STJ is definitely the favorite if they
Mhm.
end up playing against Moth.
Could you
So,
expand a little bit on? I'm just very curious. Like, how do you feel that Moth approaches the matchup differently than you?
Um,
Just broad strokes.
I play, or at least I used to play, because the last time I played a good Puff was more than half a year ago. I play very like in a style where I turn my back a lot, just to make it hard for Puff to ever go in with like auto cancel Nair stuff, because you can't really. If Nana gets hit by a Nair, then she can just get arrested from Puff, and it's really difficult to deal with that. So I turn my back a lot, but Moth plays a lot more front facing and is more willing to just like wave dash towards Puff, wave dash under Puff. I mostly just hold my space and play around center stage. Moth is more willing to like fight on and around the platforms. So that's a
Makes sense.
style difference that might make a difference here.
yeah, and you were mentioning that, Moth with the SDJ notes, is the ICs community more like collaborative? Like, have you shared your findings or analysis with that set with the other ICs and, something that could potentially be used in this instance to have a better shot versus the Jigglypuff?
If people ask, then I usually share it. So maybe if Moth hits me up, then we can talk
If
about it.
Moth's watching, yeah, DM
hit
Nikki
But
Nikki's
right
yeah,
line.
now.
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
if I see Moth at the venue, I'll definitely go talk to her and be like, "Yo, you want to talk
for
about
sure.
how to play against SCJ?
Oh,
Like, you want
okay,
to share
yeah.
ideas?"
Yeah,
But it's not like we, like, are in a Discord call every day. Like we don't really talk, but at tournaments, we say hi, and then
for
I'll
sure.
bring this
Yeah.
up just to see if I can help.
The camaraderie for sure. Yeah. There's like something special about playing the like less represented characters. You have to like share the information, like maybe not warm someone up once in a while, to help
Hey,
your fellow mid-tier players succeed
Gotta
for
let them
sure.
live on.
yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
feel the
live
like
warm
on.
up embargo.
Yeah,
it's a
the warmth
very
embargo.
important new thing for ICs. I like to say that the Ice Climbers players have unionized, because it used to be that we had like 2 or 3 like good ICs players who would all like do
Yeah.
their own small things that they themselves maybe didn't even know why exactly they were doing it, but it was working, but no one really knew why or how. And I feel like now, like I made a guide and people are a lot more open to just talking about all the ideas they have. And I feel like the knowledge has just been congregating in a way that is very
Sure.
productive, which I think
Yeah,
is a
it's
good,
more
big reason.
centralized. Yeah.
Yeah, so the character is much easier to learn now. There is a lot less of like, yeah, you can do X or Y here. We don't really know which one's better. Just pick whatever.
Mhm.
There's been a lot more analysis going into everything. So I think that really has helped the character.
Awesome. Yeah. Looking at this next little slice, we have Axe versus Zaza, which I'm not sure if you all are aware of Zaza, but they are a really good Jigglypuff player from North Carolina, right? They're the
Oh,
best player in
Zaza.
North Carolina. Yeah. And they've really made some waves in the couple events they've gone to, but you know, I don't think they only get to travel to majors, right? It's a pretty rare occurrence that they get to go to something like this. I know they had a pretty good run that tipped off last year. I'm trying to remember who they beat.
At tipped off last year. I can
Yeah,
pull this up. They
tipped off
beat
last
Cop
year.
and
Yeah.
J Scrub No Jump Yeti Cop. But I think they
Mhm.
actually they had a really good run at was it Big House 11?
Mhm.
They got
Yeah,
25th,
I believe
Why did
so.
they
beating
Yeah.
win this?
Yeah.
beating Koopa Troopa Spark and SDJ.
Yeah.
Wow, that is
That's a
good.
very
Yeah,
good run.
Yeah,
That's a very good run,
that's a
even though
good
it's a
run.
while ago. But yeah, it does not get to attend a lot. And really, as you know, a Jigglypuff player, right, going to your one major a year, who else do you want to see in your bracket besides potentially Pikachu, right?
yeah,
You know, so that's something pretty interesting. Where I believe Axe, you know, normally does go Fox versus Jigglypuff now, right? And he's had really good success versus some of the Jigglypuffs. Like at Genesis, he beat SDJ
right.
after SDJ had beat Moki, which was kind of a crazy thing when you think about it, right?
That is. Yeah.
But then recently we've only kind of seen it lose the Hungry Box, right? So how do we feel that, you know, Axe's Fox versus Jigglypuff does versus the rest of the field, not just versus Hungry Box?
So that's what I was gonna ask. Like, I was gonna say, do you think Axe is definitely going Fox against
Hmm.
I feel
Zaza?
like
Because
Axe just rocks the Pikachu
yeah, because
most of
I
the
was
time, right?
You
wondering
think so?
if he only did that versus HBox, but then you brought up, you're right, he did beat
Yeah.
SDJ. So
Hmm.
yeah, I
I
wonder like
also
if
think
Axe
it's
drops
gonna
a
be Fox.
game too. Like, is that gonna be like something he hesitates about? I'm not
You
sure.
switch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. What do you think, Nikki?
I definitely think that Axis Fox has looked good enough against HBox and SCJ that I
Hmm.
don't see a reason why he wouldn't start with Fox
Mm,
and still feel
Yeah.
confident even if he loses game one. I
true.
think
Go
Axis
Pikachu.
Fox in the matchup has been good enough to just stick it out even if you go down 0-1. Maybe if you're down 2-0, maybe he'll consider it, depending on how the games play out. But I think his Fox is more than good enough in the matchup and should hold up well for him here.
Mm.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then just below that, we have Slug versus John Co, right? Kodoran.
Yeah.
So,
It,
Nikki, what are your thoughts? As the Ices pool, you know, I think we'll be calling you a lot here for your thoughts, but that's
I,
a pretty interesting draw, I think.
I actually think Slug has the god bracket. Like
Really?
it almost couldn't get any better
Oh, I
to get
see
into
what you're
top 32
saying.
for Isis
Actually,
at this
hold up.
tournament.
Yeah.
Because Slug
Interesting.
Kodoran is good, but I don't think Kodoran is that amazing against Ices. Kodoran also
Mhm.
just hasn't been as into it and as active as Kodoran
Active.
used to be. So I
Yeah.
would say that Slug is definitely the favorite against
Mhm.
Kodoran. And if he then has to play against Axe or Zaza,
Mhm.
probably Axe, but could be either.
Yeah.
I also think that Slug has a very good chance there.
Yeah, I could
Um,
Mhm.
see that being Slug favored, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
yes, I think Slug is
The matchup.
I think Slug's playstyle probably doesn't work quite as well against Pikachu as mine does, just because he's a little bit less optimized. So like needing one grab versus needing 2 or 3 grabs to close out a stock makes a huge difference in the matchup.
For
Okay.
sure.
But I think I remember those two having played at some point and it being somewhat close. Let me try to look that up when that was, but it was probably like 2 years ago. So um,
I think it might have been
yeah.
at Main
Anyways,
Stage 2021 or something.
they played at Shine 2022.
That's a
And I
while
think
ago.
Axe won. Yes, Axe won. Exactly. That's
Oh, you're
why I
talking about
think
that.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep. And
talking about
those
Axe
are
and Slug.
only set of all time, apparently, according to the Smashers app. So,
Okay.
Mhm.
I thought
Yes,
you
and
were
Axe
talking
went
about
all
Kadora and
Pikachu.
Slug.
Oh no. I think in that set, I think Slug should have it.
Mhm.
Of course, Kodoran's really good at the game, so Kodoran can always win.
I know
For
Slug has
sure.
been
But
playing Zane a lot recently too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not
Preparing.
sure how
No,
well that prepares you for Kodoran. But
True.
yeah, Mono, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Oh, sorry.
No. I think it's gonna be hard, it's hard to tell with Slug, right? Because like he's been playing, like you said, Zane a lot. I know he's playing Mocha
Mhm.
the other day, but like I feel like the rest and the activity like didn't have a great announce bowl. I think for the
Correct.
standard
Yeah.
that we'd hold him to.
That's true, but that
So
was like his first big one back in a while.
First big one back, yeah. And the Ices Ditto, I hear, is a very weird matchup, is at least
Right.
what I was hearing after the
Dark
fact.
X
So
beat him.
yeah, Dark Gen X beat him in
Yeah.
losers, yeah, which is pretty funny. But John Coe is also such an interesting wild card in this bracket too, because he's a married man. I think his last tournament he lost to Rocket. It was not particularly a great performance from John Coe at Altitude Sickness.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know about that.
But it's like he's one of those people that can just really show up on game day, right? Which is pretty funny. So
is that his last tournament?
I think that's at least his last regional or bigger tournament, right?
Major,
I know
yeah.
he's been going to his
He
locals, I
lost.
think,
You're talking about
down there.
Rocket,
But
the Young Link?
Young Link,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
he lost
okay.
to Rocket, Young Link. Yeah, I think in pools, the altitude sickness. So
Yeah, he lost to Rocket and Salt,
Rocket and Salt.
but
yeah,
did beat Zamu. So
did beat Zamu. Yeah, I mean John Coe still got it, right? John
I
Coe
think
still got
so
it for
too.
sure.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see that set, but yeah, I think Nikki's absolutely right. That has high upset potential for sure, and I think that changes Axe's bracket a lot, whether or not he has to play against Marth or play against Ice Climbers.
Climbers,
Obviously. Um, looking at this bottom section, we have Junebug versus Gatsu, and this is what I'm interested on, right? Because I think Gatsu's obviously a player that we normally would say is not in the same echelon as June, but June has been struggling a bit versus the captain recently, right? He lost to None. I believe he also lost to Salt at Full House, right? Um, so I'm pretty curious to see how that one goes, but I will note that Gatsu is now on a certified Ohan approved rectangle and not the rectangles he's played on previously, right? So but yeah, very interesting path.
I do think that the way that Gatsu plays probably matches into Donkey Kong pretty well. I feel like he can be really conservative with holding his ground, throwing out a lot of like knee in place, things that are very safe,
For
and
sure.
playing matchups very methodically. And I feel like with a big dumb monkey like Donkey Kong, it can be really hard to grapple with that kind of play style. So I wouldn't be
sure.
surprised if it actually is an upset in spite of Gatsu.
Don't forget,
You
like
know.
back in the day, Gatsu was like, he was one of the people pushing the 20GX movement. You
20
remember that?
DX,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
The
was like
cookbook,
when
yeah.
Methodical Falcon became a thing, and he was one of
Yeah.
like the innovators of that. So
Yeah, that one's pretty funny. And then on the other side we have Lod versus Cobalt, which of course is just who knows, right? I'm a Cobalt believer in my heart of hearts, right? Until the day I die. That man is a mythical unicorn, but
well,
I have no idea how to call Lod versus Cobalt. Like literally none.
one
So
thing I actually wanted to say about Lot Cobalt is I always noticed that like the old school players, their fundamentals are really, really good. And
mhm,
I feel like that translates to fighting Peach pretty well. So like
mhm.
I would give it to Lod, but I would not be surprised like if Cobalt just like pulled one out of there and just like
Yeah.
won, you know?
Yeah. And then the winner of that playing June, I think, is also interesting. I don't know if June and Lod have ever played. Someone correct me. June famously beat Triff at Egg Dog, which I think was kind of defining because I think a lot of people thought Peach would just destroy Donkey Kong, right? And maybe
was so
Peach does
insane.
just destroy Donkey Kong, right? Who knows? But that was maybe, in my opinion, the biggest upset of last year on the vibes,
Really? You
right?
think so?
I would have never bet that would happen in a million years, right? That Triff was going to lose to June. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Lod does in that matchup, or even potentially Cobalt. Cobalt and June did play a set at a regional in Georgia, I believe in April of last year, and I think Cobalt lost game 10. It was a very, very
Oh
close
wow.
set of the tournament. So yeah, very, very, very interesting. And then looking at losers here, the loser of Drefn and KJH has to play the loser of, I believe it is some combination of Slug, Kodoran, or even Axe to make
Kodoran,
top two.
yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. Once again, that's another really difficult spot where
Dang.
somebody like KJH, Kodoran, Slug, or Axe not making Sunday at a tournament, like not making top 32, is crazy, right? They're normally the shoe-ins, we feel
Yeah.
like, in these sort of things. But yeah, I think that just speaks to how crazy this corner of the bracket is, especially, right?
Bloodbath, if you will.
Yeah, definitely a bloodbath. So maybe
Yeah, because
let's take a look at top 32 after this now
Yeah,
and
yeah.
see what we got going on here.
yeah, it feels like that
But
pool in
also,
particular had a bunch of guys who are really good, but maybe not as active. Just
yeah,
You know, it's but I
Yeah.
think people that we know who can punch really high. So that is
For sure. Yeah,
really cool.
that's definitely a vibes based pool, you know? Like it's you kind of sometimes you have to seed based off the vibes a little bit, and I think that's kind of the end result. But yeah, looking at top 32 is so interesting because we can look at our eyes and see the projected sets, but really who knows who will end up there, right? Like we just
Mhm.
talked about all the individual quarters of, you know, the bracket and how there's so many upsets and it can go this way or that way. So really it's anybody's guess who will end up playing, you know, come Sunday morning a week from now. But you know, we do have some pretty interesting sets lined up. So I think one that immediately jumps out the 8th, 9th seed difference is this JMook versus Triff set, right? If I believe they played at Full House, you know, recently,
Yes,
I believe that Jake won, if I'm correct, right? And I believe that was the only set that Jake won over the weekend.
I think that's
That
correct.
I think he won two, didn't he? We'll look it up.
I
I'm
think
not
he
sure,
won
but
one set. Yeah.
I believe they played, and I believe
He
that
did beat
Jake
Triff.
did beat
He did beat
Triff.
Triff.
So
I think it was
yeah.
game 5 though, right?
I believe it was
Wasn't
pretty
it?
close. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
pretty close. They played a game 5 set on Yoshi's, so that's one where I'm quite curious to see that run back. And then the winner
Yeah.
of that playing Mr. Schwab, right? I
Right.
think
Mhm.
I don't know. Has Triff played Cody in a while? I don't think they played in pools at Full House, right?
I
So
don't think so. It might have
I
been
actually
Egg
think they
Dog. I'm not
played.
sure.
They played at Eggdog. I even think they played twice because there's a tiebreaker in the group, and I
mm,
think Cody beat Triff
Oh,
twice.
at Egg Dog you're
mhm,
That
talking
is,
about.
I think, correct. Yeah.
Yes, at Eggdog
that
in
makes
September
sense.
of last year.
Yep.
Yeah, which
But
is we're 8 months ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty to say that Triff has definitely leveled up as far as this year, right? At least, you know, based off the placements, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think that's also one where, given that Cody, I think also would probably admit he's not always the best versus Peach,
I
right?
agree.
Really
Yeah.
could lead to something interesting happening for sure.
Mhm.
I will
But
say
yes,
though,
Cody
Yeah.
did beat Trip twice, 3-1 both times at
a
Egg Dog.
3-1 both times. Okay.
3-1
Yes.
both
Mhm.
times. Yep.
I think Triff obviously looked really strong at Genesis.
Mhm.
But since then, Full House was okay for Triff, I think.
Right.
Mhm.
It's like some sets where it was like right on the edge, Triff could have won but barely lost. And then also at Valhalla in Europe, Triff got double eliminated by Riggs, who's
Yeah.
now,
Correct.
you know,
Which is,
Mhm.
that's
part of our
huge for
team.
Rix, I think.
It
It
is.
is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like,
Points.
if you double eliminate Triff, then you should just be guaranteed top 100. Because like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
true.
couldn't. I've
Who else?
couldn't
Yeah. Who
even beaten
else?
Triff once in my life. You did it twice at one
Yeah.
tournament. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, But yeah, Triff kind
That's
of has to prove himself that he's still as good as we all know he is. And I mean,
for
not
sure.
really. We all know that he can easily
Yeah,
he could
true.
just beat Jmook and then Cody and be winner side top
He
8, and
doesn't
it
have to
Top eight.
prove
wouldn't
anything, but it
be
would be
that
cool to see.
surprising.
Yeah.
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 And what's interesting, I know that Triff, as well as a lot of people, will be at the boot camp. Like, I think that's pretty cool that we're about to go into such a stacked weekend
Right.
of Melee, and we're just going to have people grinding Melee the whole week up into it, right? Like, really trying to bring the best. And I think that's pretty exciting to see because, you know, you want everybody to be playing good, obviously. And generally, yeah, I'd like to think the person playing the best Melee does win, right? So,
Mm.
um,
Generally.
definitely a very hype one there. Like I said, who knows if it'll even be those two players there, but yeah, currently that's projected. The next one is projected to be Zane versus Moth, which I think is
Ooh.
pretty interesting. Could also be SDJ, right? But if Moth does
Mhm.
make it there, Nikki, what are your thoughts as the only ICs, at least in recent times, to have beaten Zane?
I think Moth and Zane have had some game 5 sets already.
Mhm.
I don't think Moth
Mhm.
has been able to pull through just quite until the end. I think their last set it might have been a 3-1. I'm not quite sure.
It was a 3-1 at Nouns Invitational, and then before
Mhm.
that, it
Yes.
was a 3-2
Riptide.
at Riptide.
Yes, okay, so I roughly had it right in my head. That's good.
Mhm.
I think Zane's style matches up better against Moth's style than it does against mine, just because, like I
Mhm.
said, Moth is a little bit more scrappy than I am.
Mhm.
And Zane is plays the matchup very, very slowly, so he wants people to try to overextend against him. That's pretty much how he gets all his openings. And I don't think Moth is as good as just keeping that tension forever until Zane makes a mistake, because making Zane make a mistake is really difficult. But I think if these two end up playing, Moth definitely has a good chance. Like, it's
Mhm.
not like she has a 5% chance. I think there's a good chance. Like, I'd give her like solid 10 to 20% chance of winning, and maybe
For sure.
even like not having to win game 5, because
Yeah.
the counterpick are really strong for IC. So if you get the game lead in the set and you have your FD game and you don't choke the one FD game that you really just should win, it's very doable for Moth.
For sure. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think that's pretty interesting, and I think inversely, SDJ is obviously someone. If SDJ makes it in that spot, also a very good player, has beaten almost all the top players, and that's definitely a very interesting set. I'm not sure of their history with Zane specifically.
They
Zane,
are 3-0 Oh, that one of those is online. So it was a 3-0 at Don't Park and a 3-0 at Genesis 10.
Okay, yeah, Zane is someone who prides himself, I think, normally on the Jigglypuff matchup, right? At least
Right.
until past couple weeks. So that one will be interesting to see. But yeah, I think both of those are probably think we'd say pretty strongly Zane favored opponents starting off Sunday. But definitely upset potential for sure. The next one that I think is very interesting is the projected June versus Axe, right? I believe June 3-0'd Axe at SmashCon last year, in a matchup that I personally think is horrendous. But who am I to speak? But Big Monkey definitely be doing something to Pikachu. But yeah, I feel like both June and Laud are potentially pretty difficult draws for Axe there. So despite Axe having the projected versus Zane, which is maybe arguably his best opponent of winners quarters, his path to make it there is pretty difficult. So
Yeah, he also might have to play Slug before even making
maybe,
it here. So
yeah,
it's a really difficult path for Axe here.
yeah.
Wait, sorry. So there's a chance that Zane gets double ices. Is that?
There is a
I guess
chance
a
Zane
small
gets double
chance,
ITs. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a
Well, to be
chance
honest,
that.
like Zane's path here looked pretty hard in general. Like he gets Moth, who he
Yeah,
has close sets with. He's
Right.
projected to play the winner of Axe and June, who
we both beat him last time.
yeah,
Yeah,
True.
exactly.
yeah,
And if not, then another ICs. But that's not
yeah. No
easy.
spaces
Yeah,
to be found in that quarter of the
yeah,
bracket. No, literally zero spaces. So
like sure it's not easy, but
Yeah.
I guess this is also where we're starting to reach top 8 area.
for
So
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
very
of the
very
top
interesting.
16 seeds, there's only what, 4 spaces?
is that
Is that it?
true? No
Because
way.
it's sorry, 5. Cody,
Cody,
Magi,
Magi,
Moki, Mango, Aklo.
of the
That's
top
it.
16 seeds, you're correct.
Dang,
Yeah,
what the heck?
you're correct.
That's insane.
We gotta bump those numbers up, guys. We
Yeah,
gotta
for
do it for the home team, But yeah, what's funny? I think that's a very interesting part of the bracket. A lot of mid tiers, especially I think a lot of hard opponents for Zane. So I think really, regardless of who makes it far enough to play Zane, assuming he makes it to that winners top 8 qualifier, it'll be a pretty interesting, tricky quarter of the bracket for him. All right, let's see here. Who's next? We have very interesting. We have the H box section of this bracket, right? And we have H box versus the winner of Magi and Plup, right? Which will be pretty interesting. So once again, I have no idea. We said we thought that one had high upset potential for Plup, but who knows? Is Plup going to
right.
show up and beat Hungry Box, right? Is he going to show up and Puff Ditto him? Like, is Magi going to play H box? I have no idea on the vibes here
That really
at
is
all.
like a wild card, huh?
It's almost seemingly random.
Yeah,
Funny enough. So I guess the one thing to note here is, of course, Hungrybox did drop a set versus Falco recently, right? Which at least has to be some hope for the Falco players out there, right?
true.
That there's that possibility going into this tournament. But yeah, I don't know. I think those are two people. I know Juan is not happy about having to play Plup. He's not overly enthusiastic
Oh,
about
is that
that
true?
one, but yeah, that's what he was mentioning. But he said at the end of the day, he just has to beat whoever he's playing,
That's
which I
kind of
think
what
is a
I was
good
thinking.
mentality.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it. But yeah, playing Plup in that round, I'd say is something most people will probably be unhappy about. So you
Yeah,
gotta
I
play him
think
sometimes. Somebody's gotta play him.
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hbox definitely would be happier, I think, to play Magi here.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I think if the bracket plays out as it's projected right here, as I'm seeing it now, I think Hbox would be pretty happy. But yeah, having Plup there as the X factor, not knowing which Plup's gonna show up, that could
Yeah,
change this entire like path or this
Yeah.
entire
the whole
part of the
tournament.
bracket.
Yeah, the
Loki,
whole tournament can
like
change.
HBox got a pretty good bracket path to top 8, in my opinion. Like he
Yes,
either has
one
to
of the best
play
ones.
Magi,
Mhm.
he's heavily favored against, Plup, who like we don't if Plup isn't super
Who
locked
knows?
in, like
Yeah,
that's definitely HBox favorite.
coin flip. Yeah.
And then the winner of Nikki and Amsa, which are pretty good matchups for Puff. So like I actually think he has a really good path to top 8.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, Nikki, I'm curious your thoughts now talking about you versus Amsa. I believe y'all played that one set at
Main
Egg Dog, if
stage.
I'm
Oh,
correct,
sorry, not main
right?
stage. Yeah.
And so yeah,
Yes.
I'm curious kind of your perspective, your learnings from there, kind of what you're thinking of having to play the Red Dino potentially on Sunday.
I went into that set, obviously never having played against any Yoshi that's anywhere close to being top 100 level before his ICs.
Mhm.
So I like prepared a lot just by watching a bunch of AMSA VODs. I think the last time AMSA lost to an Ice Climbers was like 10 years ago or something like that.
Oh
So
Mhm.
really?
it's a really, I think it would be a really cool streak for me to break. And even at Eggdog, when we played, I was up 2-1. I had like a grab in the corner that should have, like, if I knew what I know now, I should have been able to kill from it. So I feel like I know what I need to do, and I've learned enough new stuff from our set that if we both make it there, I think it's going to be a really fun set. I'm just looking forward to trying all the stuff out that I've now worked on and I've now figured out.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you two are probably the people that just, geographically and like your tournament attendance probably cross paths the least statistically, right? As far as being in the same room as each other. So it's always a treat when you see two people, especially two international players, have to play each other in such a rare occurrence for sure.
Yeah.
And then, say you win that set, how do you feel about versus Hungry Box, right? I believe that Egg Dog's also the last time you played Juan, if I recall.
Mhm.
So I believe that set was very competitive as well. So is there something similar that you've learned from that set that you're maybe taking into this tournament?
Yeah, I've got like my 10 pages of like notes on that set
Mhm.
that I've
Yeah,
just been working on implementing the last months. So I think there's a lot of new stuff that I can try out. There's also some secret stuff that he might not expect, that I'm not going to reveal, of course. But there's always the question, like, depending on how things go, do I maybe play Fox just to break his momentum? And, when I'm up and he realizes, oh, I'm just going to time you out, what if I play Fox and then force him to approach, right? Because
yeah,
he can't just camp forever unless he already has a
for
lead.
sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing that again. I think I am like 60% prepared to playing HBox now.
Mhm.
In like another month or two, I think I'll be fully prepared, and then I'll hopefully
Sure.
I get to play him again in August. And then
Yeah,
I think I have the best chance, but I already think I have a good chance now.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
I,
definitely.
I like how Nikki goes by the percents. He is always dropping the
Yeah, the
percents.
percents.
Yeah.
Yeah, 60% here, 40% there. Funny. And then next we have Moki versus the winner of Wizzy Crudo. Right now, I will say that the last time I personally watched Wizzy versus Moki play, I believe it was Genesis last year, was maybe one of the greatest ass beatings of all time. Right,
That set
like
is
that
it's
was a
disgusting.
brutal
Oh,
set.
Wizzy Moki. Yeah.
Wizzy
Yeah.
Moki, yeah. I think maybe the only ass beating I've ever seen worse was at that same tournament, Wizzy 3-0ing H-Box in 8 minutes, right? Which is pretty
Yeah.
funny. But yeah, I'm pretty curious. I think definitely, Wizzy can always win, right? I think that's both are really good draws for Moki, I think, obviously, in this round of
Yeah.
bracket. But yeah, I'm curious about mainly Moki and Kyle, because I don't know the last time that they've played, but I recall, I believe it was two tipped offs ago they played in top 8 and Moki won 3-1. But
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure if they have a more recent set than that
Yeah. Kyle's improved a lot, especially since
in 2
then.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And they do play like I mean, Crudo is everybody's chic warm up, so I
Of
know that
course.
he and
Yeah.
It's not
and
just me.
Curtis play, and I think that like I know that Curtis thinks very highly of Crudo's play, and he's a scary person for anybody to run into, really.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the only time they've ever played in tournament was 2 years ago, in which they played in top 8 and Moki won 3-1. So yeah, I think that's definitely a very interesting poll. And I think really that's, we see Kyle versus Zane pretty often. We see Kyle versus Cody, I feel like every other major, but we don't really see him versus Moki. So definitely a very interesting set. And then just inverse of that, Aklo, I mean,
Mm.
third year in a row it tipped off, you versus Mango, right? Will this be the third year in a row you get reverse 3-0'd? Or are you gonna break the curse and actually take the set? What's the vibes?
um. Well, before I even say that, actually, fun fact: Mango is the only top player that I've never beat. But
Yeah, when's the last time y'all played?
must have been not anytime recently. Um, yeah, I actually
what
can't
is
even
it?
think of it.
I'll look it up for you.
Yeah,
Let's
if you
see.
could, yeah.
We'll pull the stats. Looks like last time he played was at Egg Dog Invitational, in
Right.
which he 3-0'd you.
Reverse 3-0, by the way.
Yeah, well that one I think he just 3-0'd you, is at least what
Oh,
the
what?
the stats are saying. But tipped off, he did reverse 3-0 you last year. Yeah,
Oh, I think you are right. Yeah, okay, you're right, you're
yeah,
right.
yeah. How are you
Yeah,
feeling
but
about Falco? Yeah, in
so
general, Mango.
I've actually I talked to Mango at Full House. I played a lot of friendlies with him.
Mm,
We've been hanging, like, just talking, playing friendlies at the events sometimes here and there.
for sure. Yeah.
Um, and I actually learned a lot from playing him at Full House. Not specifically against him, but it's about playing, like, in general, about myself.
Mhm.
Um, But without like rambling on and on, basically Mango is saying a little bit what you were saying earlier. It's like, yeah, you got to play the player, especially at the top level, and just stop
Yeah.
playing against only the character. And I think that's mostly true. Like you got to play the player, but I realized like I wasn't doing that all at all against Mango, and then like my brain was like expanding basically after he said that, and like I was watching my own friendlies with him like as I was playing, and I started to see stuff here and there, and like I think I've been getting a lot better versus Falco now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially against Mango, I think you kind of like play the same way you play against Falco against Mango. There's just so many situations where he does the complete opposite of like what most Falcos will tend to do.
Mm.
And those spots, he either opens you up and zero to deaths you, or you can do the same back to him. And
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
classic
And
example of like gets out of a knockdown in the corner instead of like being defensive, he just short hops at you, and you gotta
yeah,
fight back.
and this is gonna sound like so like general, but it really just comes down to like you have to pay attention against good players.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
you really got to be aware of what's happened, what's gonna happen, and what's going on, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
And then potentially winning that set, if you beat Mango for the first time, you'd have to play Moki, right?
Yeah.
Projected. What are your thoughts on that? I know in 2024 you had a little bit of a rivalry growing. You know, I
Yeah,
think
we
there
were
was
even
some
going back and back
interesting
and
pop
back and forth.
offs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
but you've only played a Genesis this year, I believe. Is that correct?
no, he also beat me pretty badly at Full House, actually.
At Full House, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
but
So what are your thoughts on that and the Fox Ditto and all that jazz?
yeah, so I've been losing like terribly to the Foxes. It's like it's to the point where like the Foxes see me or like they have me in bracket and just like I just boost them higher into top 8 or give them a free major win or get them into top 8. It's really annoying. And
Yeah. Well, Fox is the best character versus Fox after all. So
but
we won't
exactly,
hold
and
that
that's
against
why I
you.
should be
I
But
know
winning.
the
yeah,
feeling.
That's why I should be winning.
yeah,
Um, but it's like it's actually kind of like the problem for Fox with me is like it's a little bit of a confidence thing. I get really scared when I play Fox. He's like he's fast and
sure.
he's strong. I don't know if you knew that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's crazy.
and his attacks are kind of fast too. Um,
Wow.
but I will say I had the grandpa come over to my house a few days ago. He
Oh,
was
I
home,
see.
and
Whipped you into shape.
he's really usually a busy man, but I
Hmm.
got some hours in. We
Nice.
watched a couple of my Fox sets that I lost recently, and yeah, we just found some stuff to work on, pretty big stuff, like, and I feel a lot more confident now. So
Awesome.
although Mango into Moki, like that sounds like a bad draw for me, I think there's no reason that it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that for sure. Yeah, and I think it's great when everybody thinks their bracket's good for them, right? Because I think, Mango inversely is probably someone who's like, oh, this is the best path to top 8 possible,
Yeah,
right?
he probably loves
Thank
this path. Yeah.
he probably loves this bracket, low key, right? It's like, oh, I want to play all these people. I love only having to play against Fox players, especially because he's on his interesting, pseudo Falco arc. But what's funny is, I mean, he did win the tournament last year, right? But there's now this like added X factor of the Mario Kart Switch 2 debuff. Nintendo literally can't let me have anything. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting to see what Mango shows up that day because I think we'd all agree is probably the most polarizing player on what kind of manga you get when you enter the building. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I have
Axel,
a
I have an
feeling.
offer.
Oh yeah,
you have an
sorry.
offer.
Well, I just want to say
Yeah,
what I was gonna say about Mango real quick.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that we're gonna see ship shape Mango in this
You
tournament.
think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, until
We'll
I
see.
beat him down, of
Yeah.
course. But yeah.
Until you beat him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nikki, what's your offer? What you got?
Axel, what if we just swapped seeds? How does
Swap
that
seeds.
sound?
Swap
All right, what is
seeds.
this?
You play
Give you
Amsa, I play
Yoshi and
Mango?
the pup. Yeah.
Yeah, you get, I don't know,
I'm
I feel
saying
like
Hungry
you
Box,
don't
but
have to
that's
play
not
a
bad
Flots.
actually. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we can find a TO and, maybe bribe them
Yo,
just
I
a
might
little
be
bit.
down, but
Not sure if there's
we
someone we
play,
could ask.
but then we play in round one top 8 though.
I mean, then
Ooh,
one
that's
of us is
true.
in winners finals. I'll take that.
Yeah, one of us isn't winners finals. Yeah,
I'm
True.
that's
okay with
funny.
that.
Jesus, yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely a bunch of really hype sets in that round. I don't really know if it's really worth it to even talk about the losers sets
It never
because
is, man.
who
Like
knows, right?
especially here.
It's
Like
not
Who
gonna be.
knows?
It's not gonna be that.
It, it won't be what's on the screen, but I guess kind of my last question here for each of you is, besides yourself, we'll take the bias out. You're not allowed to answer yourself. Who do you think has a really good shot? Who do you think is going to win the tournament, right?
And we're not allowed to say ourselves.
Not allowed to say yourself. That's
Okay.
we'll take that off the table. Just
Oh,
I don't
man.
want to make anybody take an attempt on their pride. So
All right, then I'll say Aklo. Aklo says Nikki, and then we've got that covered.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly.
I personally think it almost kind of has to be Cody.
Mhm.
Not saying it has to be. Of course, Cody could also just, anyone could lose before top 32 or early in top
Mhm.
32. But I think Cody's path looks really solid.
Yeah.
Having to play Zayn before winners finals, of course, is a bit tough for him. But I don't
Well,
think he minds that too much.
you could say that's
yeah.
tough for Cody, but if you look at it the other way around, it's like if he beats Zayn before winners finals, that
Mhm.
almost secures him being in grand finals. Like in a way, like
Well,
it makes it even harder for Zayn to come back to
yeah,
grand finals. Is what I'm trying to
for
say.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're
Definitely.
likely to only have to play him once if you beat
Yeah,
him in winter
exactly.
semis compared to later in the bracket. So
Yeah, but Hungrybox, of course, also has, like we said, a really good path. Everything plays out as seeded here. If you can avoid Plup just going on a rampage. So yeah, I feel like Cody and HBox, the 1 and 2 seeds, they have really good chances. But I think anyone who we're seeing right here, especially in winners quarters, has a good shot at winning the event.
for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Akla, what are your thoughts? Who do you think's
Well,
going
it's
far? Who do
funny
you
that
think's
Nikki says that
impressive?
because for some reason I don't see the name Aklo in the winners quarters projected, but
Oh, that's tragic.
Oh, I thought you
yeah.
were. Sorry, I meant that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I read Moki Mango and I thought it was Moki Aklo. My bad.
Yeah, like I do agree that Cody has the best path projection wise. I do also kind of see Moki. I'm sorry, not Moki. Jmook making a good run, even through loser side potentially.
Mm.
If he beats
And
Axe into Moki into Zane, that is pretty good. But
I feel like like Jake's so tough to predict right now because
For
it's
sure.
almost like
Yeah.
Mango. You just don't know which
You don't know.
Jmook is showing up.
I think
Because
he's
like
showing up.
on
I don't think anybody's gonna come here and not like play
Well,
it that
sometimes
well.
it's not up to you, right? Sometimes it's
yeah.
not up to you. Sometimes you show
That's
up
true.
and your best is only an 8 of your possible 10 or something like that. So
That is true. That is true.
very tricky. All right,
Dang, man.
Mono, as the only person not on this page, what are your thoughts as an objective, non-biased third party?
Well, as an objective, non-biased third party with no horse in this race,
Yeah, no horse in this race.
I
Yeah,
think you have to look at Moki's bracket just
yeah, of
completely without bias.
Right,
Because
right, of
course.
course.
like
Yeah, yeah,
Crudo is look, he's the third seed. And we have
yeah.
talked about Cody and HBox, but he has won his last 2 sets against Mango. Granted, one of those was a non-invitational
You're
set,
actually
but he
right.
did win
Wait.
a
Yeah,
clean set at Collision.
yeah.
He
Mhm.
has beat Aklo for the last couple sets and Crudo for the last couple sets. So
Yeah, and Hungry Box,
granted,
right?
and Hungry Box, he won
Yeah,
at Full House.
yep.
So while I think they're all very scary for him, I think he is favored in all of those sets by the numbers.
By a margin. Yeah,
So you're a
it's
numbers
very
guy, huh?
interesting. Yeah, numbers
He's a
guy.
numbers guy.
Well, speaking of
Yeah.
numbers, Moki is the highest seeded 20-year-old in the bracket. That's been a joke I've been
What
telling
is that
around.
supposed to mean?
He's the highest seeded person in their 20s. So
Oh, in their
which is
20s.
pretty
Okay,
funny.
okay. I thought
Yeah,
you.
Oh,
Okay.
20
is.
something, right?
Yeah, 20 something. Yeah, so I think it's pretty funny. But yeah, it's like Moki is the third seed, right? And I think just as easily as anybody else, he could have an excellent run.
Wait, is he
Um,
seated above Zane? Oh, he is. Yeah.
Yes.
he is
Okay.
seeded above Zayn.
Okay.
Yep, Zayn
Okay.
is the fourth seed. I believe that's the first time that's ever happened. That Moki seeded over Zayn. It's pretty
Wow.
interesting. But
Nice. Nice.
Zayn
yeah,
washed.
maybe. I guess we'll see, right?
We'll
Zayn,
see.
Zayn
Yeah.
did lose to Big Monkey, so yeah, definitely very interesting. I'm very curious that configuration of the bracket. One more run I maybe would like to highlight potentially is Amsa's run, right? Amsa, of course, could play versus Hungry Box, and that traditionally has not been too bad for him, right?
Right.
He's definitely taken sets. He definitely has proven he can do it. And then there's definitely a potential for a Amsa versus Mango into Amsa versus Zayn winners finals path, right? If Zayn's able to beat Cody, right? If Zayn beats Cody, I think that potentially could open up the bracket a lot for Amsa in the winner side. And then even if Zayn loses to Cody, that potentially, similar to tipped off last year, could open up the loser side of the bracket for Amsa to go pretty far. I think potentially one of the things going for Amsa at this tournament is Plup not being super highly seeded, and not really unlikely that they will end up playing that far in bracket just based off the side of brackets they would be on. So yeah, it's
No,
pretty interesting. But
I mean, it's if we assume that Plup is playing super on fire and beats Magi and then
yeah,
has to play HBox, Then of course if AMSA beats me, would have to play the winner of HBox and Plub.
Correct. They
Yeah.
could play in winners. Yeah. That
Yes,
could be
exactly.
yeah. Which then is just the whole brackets of mess, and who knows who's where, and now we have Plup versus somebody else in top 8, which would be crazy. But yeah, it's really crazy because I think like everybody on the screen has such a good shot to go far, right?
I mean, even if Nikki beats AMSA and then is it Plup beats Magi and then loses to HBox, they would play in losers very early, actually.
Yeah, they could play in
Oh,
losers down 3. Yeah. In
So I
that
think there
event,
actually is a
yeah, for
good
sure.
shot that they end up
gotta
running into each
consider
other.
all the
Yeah,
angles here.
he could theoretically have to play Plup, and then even if he beats Plup for like the first over, he'd have to play Jake to make top 8, right?
Which has not looked remotely close for the past.
Yeah, which has
6
not
months.
been great. So yeah, it's definitely very interesting. Like so many people with the shot to talk about the Japan spots for a moment, which I think are pretty
Right.
interesting, right?
2 of them, right?
To clarify, 2 of them to the highest people not going, right? Which currently, once again, Axe is the highest seeded person currently not going to Japan. He's the 5th seed of the tournament, right?
Okay.
So depending on how that goes, right? But currently, that is only 1 spot seeded to make top 8. Everybody else in top 8 is going, which means that theoretically we could have it decided in 9th place or via a 9th place tiebreaker, which would be pretty exciting to see. But other people to note, June is currently not going to the event and playing in it. Triff, of course, I know really wants to go. Axe, even someone like we mentioned, Plup, Crudo, Magi, Salt, Moth. All very interesting people that could make it pretty far. But yeah, I mean, this tournament projected wise will probably have that settled in that 9th place spot, which I think will be pretty interesting because then we get to do the wonderful world of round robin tiebreakers potentially on the quad stream,
Yes,
which would be pretty funny. So
everyone's
yeah,
gonna be gunning for 9th in a way.
everybody will be gunning for 9th or just getting through top 8, and you're
Yeah,
probably good
I
to
think the
go,
move
right?
is to not even think about like, oh, of course that's easier said than done, but like you know what I
Easier said
mean.
than done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's
Yeah,
funny
well,
is, we say just make top 8 and then you don't have to worry about it, right? But that's
Yeah.
also we said announce bowl, and then that's not what happened, right?
True, yeah.
So yeah, definitely very interesting.
yeah. So if there is a tiebreaker before top 8, that gets played on the quad before top 8 starts.
Correct.
And if it's in
Correct.
top 8, when does that happen?
If there is a tiebreaker set in top 8 for a spot for Japan, it will take place between losers finals and grand finals, basically.
Now
So it'll
you
happen
gotta do that
before
on
grand
mainstream,
finals.
just for
That
the
will be
amp
on the
up the
mainstream.
pressure.
That will be on the mainstream if it's a top 8 tiebreaker for that spot, which I think will be pretty exciting. We normally don't play out 5th place or 7th place
Right.
tiebreakers in Melee. And I think given the added weight and stakes of that, it'll definitely be pretty sick. Let alone being commentated by PP. Who doesn't want to have their set commentated by PP? So, all right. Anybody else you want to shout out, look over, anything you want to talk about with the event? Questions from chat?
I mean, I heard there's gonna be a special announcement during top
There
8
will
that
be.
people should
I was
really
about to say
look
something.
out for.
That is true. Yeah, we'll have a special trailer. Maybe about some event we're doing later this year in a foreign country. Who knows? But yeah, that'll take place during the top 4 transition. So right when top 4 starts, before Winners Finals, you'll get to watch
Yeah.
that.
Isn't
So
there also
Something very special.
a different
yeah,
That
special
is very
announcement
special.
going on too? Like maybe less like shock value, but like there's a little bit of a different announcement too.
I like to think that we keep the tournament exciting, right, for everybody involved. So, yeah, I would say it definitely, especially in the mainstream, there'll be some stuff you don't want to miss. So,
Yeah, like from the sounds of it, these are some of the coolest announcements I've seen in Melee in a minute.
I would hope so. Yeah, I think it might be some of my best work, but we'll see. I guess when we get
And
there,
and
I'll
the
let
announcement
you
about the
decide,
announcement.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
announcement about the announcement, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Check it out. Saturday, Sunday, a week from now. 3 streams going to be on twitch.tv/mango, twitch.tv/announceesports, twitch.tv/VG Bootcamp.
Oh, we
All
got
of
VG
top
Bootcamp?
128 is going to be streamed. Yep.
Nice.
All of
Nice.
top 128 is going to be streamed. So, I mean, that is like 300 sets of Melee or something between singles and doubles to get to consume and watch and have the fly eye POV on your first, second, and third monitor. So,
Oh,
I
I
hope
just
people really enjoy it.
wanna say also I love events where it's just melee only.
Yeah,
Dude, the
Melee
It,
only.
vibe is
We're the
so
only Melee
different.
it's
only
so
event.
different, yeah.
We're the
It's
only
great.
one. It's
Yeah.
it's it's
Oh,
crazy.
and I guess Full Bloom this year did that.
I'm pretty sure they still had Ultimate in the Forbidden game that we don't talk about, but it was
Right,
mostly Melee
Monopoly,
though.
yeah,
It was Monopoly, Project Monopoly.
yeah.
I'm a race car main, but
Oh, dude, the thimble, dude.
the
The
thimble is pretty
thimble.
sick. Yeah, I mean, for me as a TO, like being able to have a tournament that has, 600, 700, 800 people sign up for just Melee, I think is pretty cool for our game, right? I think that's definitely sick that we're able to still pull crowds like that just with CRTs and Melee and,
Yeah.
people wanting to go there in game. So I'm pretty excited. I'm excited it's at the zoo, right? Who
Right.
doesn't like elephants and giraffes and stuff? So
I was
Yeah.
gonna make a tweet
lot
like
of
after
fun.
it tipped off or something, or maybe even before. It's like it's a whole new meaning to the goat, man.
The
I
goat,
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be a wild time for sure.
Oh, dude, this is gonna be a
I did
long
it,
weekend if
yeah.
we're starting
It's gonna
now.
be a long
Start from Melee.
weekend. Well,
Yeah.
got to get ready for game day. But okay. Well, hey, I think that was perfect. That was a great recap of the bracket. Um,
Mhm.
I want to thank you all for being here and talking about it. I'm super excited
Yeah, this
for
is fun.
tipped off.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. We should do this for more events in the future. I think. I think
so.
it's fun
Yeah.
to
And
kind of talk about the paths. So
yeah.
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 Okay. All right. Well,
All right. Yeah. Thanks for doing this with
it.
us. Great
Of
fun.
course. Yeah.
We'll do it again in the future, and hope you all have a good rest of the day.
Yep. I'll see all of you in Atlanta in just a couple days. So
Yes.
awesome.
For sure.
Looking
See you
forward to
guys.
it.
Bye.
Peace.
See you there.
Right. Peace, guys.